And now, today we have the privilege of being here in presence of a true visionary leader, a leader in the field of law. And our next speaker has developed her extraordinary career in legal scholarship and in advancement of higher education. She has inspired future generations with her high knowledge on constitutional and administrative law, while making a significant contribution in the field too. Her leadership role spanned from being a student council president to serving as the vice dean at the University of Virginia, dean at the Stanford Law School provost at the University of Virginia, and now president at the University of Pennsylvania. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the exceptional Elizabeth Magallio.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Δώσε τη λύσμα εκεί. Ποια είναι ο κόσμος πάνω της, είναι ο κόσμος πάνω της. Είναι το χειρόφωνο το 8.
Thank you, Mr. Mbale. It's fantastic to be here in Athens, the city that is synonymous with world-changing ideas. It's also home to one of the most iconic arenas anywhere, the Panathenaic Stadium, which was constructed in 330 BC. As I think of that stadium, which is less than 7 kilometers from where we are now, another stadium comes to mind. It's somewhat further away. It's 7,800 kilometers away in New Haven, which is home to Yale University, which is the undergraduate alma mater that I share with Mr. Shriver. There you're going to find a stadium called the Yale Bowl. That's a century old, which by Athenian historical standards means it was built about 10 o'clock yesterday morning. It's also the setting for a story that Mr. Shriver tells in his New York Times best-selling book, Fully Alive, Discovering What Matters Most. The setting was the opening ceremony for the 1995 Special Olympics World Games, and one of the speakers at that ceremony was President Bill Clinton. As a security precaution, he was stationed high up on the top of the Yale Bowl for security reasons, and as he was speaking, one of the photographers noticed that one group of athletes on the field were all holding their disposable cameras strangely. They were looking through their cameras backwards. Assuming they needed help, this photographer approached and offered advice to the athletes. He said, "Turn the camera around. Point the lens at the president, and that's the way you can take your snapshot." But they said, "Why, thank you, but we're using this for a different purpose. By turning the camera around, we're treating it as a telescope. We're using it as a way to get a better look at President Clinton." The athletes overturned any number of assumptions there, and Mr. Shriver's story offers us a powerful insight. To understand a different view of the world, you should turn your lens around. A leading educator and uniter, Tim's story tells us something, and he knows what he's talking about. He's the co-founder of and chair of the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And in this capacity, he leads school reform with a focus on social and emotional learning. More recently, he co-founded and chairs an initiative to promote national solidarity called Unite. He has also harnessed the power of film, executive producing 6 films that are aimed at getting us to see one another. He's been, of course, instrumental in the growth of the Special Olympics and is one of the world's leading disability rights advocates. Few people can speak more potently about understanding a different view of the world. Here to help us turn the lens around, please give a very warm welcome to the chairman of the board of the Special Olympics International, Tim Shriver.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. It's not often that you get introduced with almost the exact text of your prepared remarks, including the story she just told, which is so beautiful. And I asked her to stay just for a minute so she can see how in sync we were, even though we've only just begun talking a few minutes ago. I'm going to open with this image here, and I know we've talked a lot about mental health, mental illness, the treatment, the care of people who are struggling with various forms and various dimensions of mental challenges. I'm going to invite you, just because I've come today from Berlin, where the Special Olympics World Summer Games are going on right now. There's 180 countries represented in Berlin right now, in the city that knows something about tearing down walls. And I thought to myself, why not start with the image of a wall, but remind us that there are a lot of walls we can't see. The walls that fear and contempt and misunderstanding and intolerance create what I call attitudes of mass destruction. These attitudes are deeply well known in the Special Olympics movement because almost every person who grows up with an intellectual or developmental disability has felt the humiliation, the scorn, the exclusion, the contempt, the attitudes that create walls that often lock people in their homes, not because of their diagnosis or condition or identity, but because of the cultural boundaries that lock them out of opportunity. So you can see here this image, Madam President. I was going to tell this whole story, but you told it perfectly. This is the image of the stadium. She just told the story of these athletes down on the field while President Clinton was talking. In my view, part of why this story is so powerful, the way the President shared it, is that it invites us to change our lens. The athletes knew what they were doing. The photographer who looked over at them made a judgment. He assumed that they didn't know what they were doing, that incompetent, right? They've got their cameras backwards. I mean, obviously they have a disability. But it turned out to be the exact opposite. Creative, innovative. They'd adapted the camera to use, as she just so beautifully explained, in a whole different way. The photographer said, I realized how often we get each other wrong. Not just when it comes to big, grand things like disability or race or culture or gender or sexuality or all these other topics we talk about. We get each other wrong across the kitchen table. You know, we get our family members wrong. We jump to conclusions with people we love. And it often takes a long time to undo the damage that comes when we as human beings make snap judgments. Black shirt, white man, okay, I know who that guy is. No, I don't. I have no idea. I learned this lesson a little bit in an unusual way. In my house, when I was growing up, the Special Olympics movement was created when I was just 4 years old. My mom was creating it. My dad had already launched and created the Peace Corps. He went on to create, in our living room, Head Start, the Job Corps, Legal Services Corporation. I was raised in a house that said, there's things that are wrong in the world, go out and fix them. Get after it. Off your butt. You know, if my mother came in and saw us in the middle of the day watching television, out the door. We were inspired to go out and solve problems. But there was an anomaly in this, and this is my mom on the left as a young woman with her sister, Rosemary. Rosemary was born in 1918 and was diagnosed almost immediately as having an intellectual disability. In 1929, when Rosemary was 9 years old, the United States Supreme Court ruled in Buck v. Bell in the great state of Virginia that women with intellectual disabilities could be forcibly sterilized against their will in institutions across the United States. The key line from the decision on Rosemary's 9th birthday was 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. A eugenics plan clearly articulated at the highest levels of law and Order in the United States called for halting the spread of this terrible toxin, intellectual disability. That's the environment in which my Aunt Rosemary grew up. By the time she came, you know, my grandmother tried to help her. My grandmother would say, there was nothing for Rosemary, nothing, 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 nothing. Hang up the phone, calling people, asking, begging. No, there's nothing for Rosemary. By the time I was a little kid, Rosemary would visit us from time to time. She had lost a lot of her function because my grandparents tried very hard to help her, including trying in some ways almost to change her, to fix her, to help adapt her. A terrible operation went awry. She had lost most of her speech. But what I learned very early on was that Rosemary wasn't a problem we could fix. She was a person we could love. She was a person we could value. But she didn't represent, like a lot of other things that were going on in my life, something where we had to go out and solve someone's problem. It was an inner game. You could watch my mom swim with her sister on the weekend in the swimming pool, and they'd swim back and forth together, Rosemary not speaking but swimming. And you could tell something else was going on here. This was a different kind of work. It was a crisis that she brought to us, was not a crisis of her ability or disability, it was the crisis of connection. And when you don't have connection, when Rosemary was robbed of connection from the culture around her, robbed of school, robbed of friends, robbed of the chance to grow and develop, robbed of the chance to do anything except with her siblings, when you rob people of connection, you open the door for contempt. And so in all of the ways in which I saw the zeal necessary of solving big problems, and many of you are doing this today, I also somehow got a second message, which is that of all the crises, economic, political, racial, that I grew up seeing, geopolitical, the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, all these things, women's movements, I also saw there was a crisis of connection in our country and in our culture, that if we didn't heal, Rosemary could never have a full life. It's my view that we are now in a deeper and deeper crisis of connection. That many of the symptoms we see are in fact an outcome from the scaling up of a whole industrial complex that rewards contempt. And notice the word here from Arthur Brooks, the Harvard scholar, and quite conservative, by the way, just to be clear, we're not in a politically polarizing discussion. Listen, look at the word, we have an addiction. Later in this quote, he says, it's like meth. It's like we've been hit by meth. And we're told over and over again, fear, contempt, come back, I'll tell you. How do you save yourself from those people? They're after you, you know. And they're trying to get you, you know. And keep that in mind. We have a contempt problem, which is the definition of destroying connection. Amanda Ripley has written about this in some of her great journalism. But let's be clear that the language, the geopolitical language of contempt and hatred affects our inner lives. It's not just politics. It's all of us. The rise of racism and anti-Semitism and anxiety and loneliness. We don't have randomized controlled trials that prove this, but we have more than enough evidence to suggest that the more toxins we put into ourselves, the more likely we are to be lonely, to be anxious, and to be afraid of other people. And that is, at least in my world, a disaster. So many of you, I just put this up here quickly. It may make you uncomfortable, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you've ever used one of these expressions. But most of us have. And whether you're conservative or progressive, whether you're black or white or rich or poor, or from the first or the third, or it doesn't matter which dimension, time zone you're in, most of us have used this language about the other group. And let me be very clear, someone else has used it about you. You think that it's very clear that they're the problem, that they hate our values, that it's their fault. You think that it's really clear that it's them that's causing all the trouble, and they think it's really clear too. Now, this is not to say positions underneath of these differences are irrelevant. It's just to say that the toll on our kids, and I'm guessing you've been here for a while, I don't need to show you this data. But look at our young people. This is recent data. Look at the level of despair we're feeding our children. And again, this is a room of experts. I just saw this particular chart day before yesterday, and I just thought, you know, of all the charts I've got, you know, you probably have 100 slides like this in your computers, and you've got data and studies and so on, but it just broke my heart to see it laid out this way. I can't do anything right, half of our kids. We're not going to be able to treat or medicate our way out of this. It just won't work. I mean, even if we had the money, we wouldn't have the people. And even if we had the people, we wouldn't be able to address many of the underlying problems, I fear. I'm not against treatment, and I'm certainly not against great medication. Those things are essential to the lives of many of us. But this problem has reached beyond those proportions. So you might say, why do I put Desmond Tutu up here? Well, I was at an event once where someone asked him, Archbishop, this was about 15 years ago, isn't it clear that evil is more powerful? Isn't it clear that all these things are natural? I mean, look, we're human beings, we're going to hate each other, right? We're violent, we're horrible, right? Isn't it clear that evil's more powerful than good? And he answered, no, evil is not more powerful than good. And then he cracked one of these little, if any of you have seen him in video or had the privilege of hearing him speak, one of these little smiles, he said, but it is better organized. So the work I want to share with you today is what we would call primary prevention. It's the organizing of the forces of connection. How do we organize for connection? So my view is that we need not just a mental health strategy, but a mental wealth strategy. How do you fill the tank of people? People could call it resilience, people could call it prevention. Mental wealth may be too kitschy, but here you have it. What do we need in order to support each other? Not just our children, by the way. That data was about children, but the rest of us, I speak for myself, need a lot of support. I'm not going to go through this. I just want you to know it exists. And here's what it is. This is a field that I, together with several other people, founded about almost 30 years ago to try to organize in schools a field to nurture connection. Not an assembly to nurture connection, or an after-school program, or an activity, or a community-based program, but a field of education designed to nurture connection. I'm so far behind my schedule, I'm going to keep going. Two quick points about this field. The first thing is we didn't know 30 years ago what we know now, which is that the brain actually depends on connection for stimulation. Are there any brain scientists in here? Because I'll cut this short and you can ask the brain scientist later. Okay, so ask her more questions about the brain science. What I know, I hope I'm right, is that the brain has a filter. Like if you're paying attention to me now, I've made some kind of a connection with you. And if you're on your phone or you're thinking about yesterday or you're planning dinner, I've lost you. I'm saying things that you don't find relevant, and our relationship is broken, right? But if I've got you, that's because something about our conversation, our imagined conversation, has engaged your desire for connection, right? So the brain, and your brain will tune out the minute that's done. You can't do anything about it. You can say, I should pay attention, but you can't. Physiologically, you're going to be gone. Our kids are the same. This is just one quick experiment. I'll just tell you very quickly. This is Pat Kuhl's experiment in her infant lab, teaching Chinese to children 9, 10, 11, 12 months old. She has this teacher. They had, I think, about 30 or 40 infants they taught Chinese to in that early stage. They measured the acquisition of the tones and language of Chinese. Then they did the exact same thing to children using the same teacher on a screen. Any guesses on the percentage of acquisition from human to screen? What do you think? Shout a number. 50%? 0. you're wired for eye contact. You may be like me, spending too much time on that screen, but we're wired for each other. That's why we're so sick after COVID, whether we got it or not. You know, we're still trying to bet the muscle back that actually allows us to look and see. Oh my God, I've got 4 minutes. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you a couple fun things. This is, the science of social and emotional learning teaches children how to connect and cope. So you can teach these skills. This is a second grade curriculum, very, very advanced. Most people in the room can't do it, but you could try. When you feel stressed out, boom, boom, drop in, positive self-talk, count to 10, take a deep breath. Not easy. It's not easy. I promise you, you will be happier the next time you have a conflict if you try it. Here's a little quick master class. If we can make this work. You gotta pay close attention.
Are you smart? Yeah. Are you strong? Yeah. Are you brave? Yeah. Are you pretty? Yeah. Are you kind?
Not really. That's self-awareness. Another critical skill. Because if you're lying to people about who you are when you're trying to connect with them, they pick it up and they start to go, you know, you're lying. You say you're kind, you're not kind. She knows it, right? So she can have it in a conversation. So these are super advanced, again, way above most people in this room. Here's strategies for how to teach people how to connect when they disagree. Think about again, no time to do it here, but I want you to know 9th graders can learn these skills. They can be taught, they can be measured, they can be reinforced, right? The hardest one here, anybody want to guess? What's the hardest one? Before I give you the answer, I should just give you the answer because I have 2 minutes and 54 seconds left. What do you think? 3, 5, 4, 2. 2 is the right answer. People can they can get better and better and better at all the tactical skills. They still don't believe the person they disagree with actually they think the person's a jerk. Deep down. Deep down, they just can't get their head around, you know, Mr. Minister, you know, I know we disagree on this trade thing, but I think that's because you're a jerk. That's what people think. So you have to train yourself out of that, and you have to learn to look beneath the surface. That's why 2 is so hard. You have to try to dig down and find the core. Because when you disagree with someone, especially on a sensitive matter, Gerald, when you've encountered people that were cruel and, you know, it's hard to believe they have positive intent, right? This is not easy. I don't mean to suggest that it is, but it can be taught. This is the last one, lots of words here. This is what Special Olympics is doing to introduce into this curriculum the idea of an inclusive mindset. Because the most powerful skill set combination to create connection where there has been isolation is what we call an inclusive mindset. Here are the 3, this is brand new research out of Harvard, the 3 dimensions of what we think of as an includer. None of us were ever taught to be an includer. You might have been taught to be tolerant, or you might have been taught the history of inclusion, or you might have been taught to protest or work in something that was inclusive, but you never got to sit down and say, let me build a. So I look at this and I've learned, just from watching this, I'm not going to tell you where I'm strong and where I'm weak, but I've noticed that I have weaknesses in this scheme. And again, if we had more time, I could tell you all about it. We don't have time to watch the video, so I'm sorry. It's so good. But anyway, let me just say, as an educational matter, this primary prevention work works. We've got 30 years of data. It doesn't just work to improve behavior. It doesn't just work to improve mood and affect. It reduces psychopathology over a 20-year period. I don't have time to put all the data up. It increases academic performance for children. Why? Because they feel safe. Don't you think you'd learn more if you felt safe? Right? And don't you think you'd learn more if you felt the teacher understood you and you had a strong relationship with your teacher and you weren't threatened by your peers? It doesn't sound that complicated, but it's never been a field in education in well, maybe in ancient Greece it was. I shouldn't say that. So here's the last point I'm going to make, and I'm going to make it very fast. This is not just for kids. Go back to the outrage industrial complex and the contempt in our culture. We need political leadership that stops bullying each other and setting an example that says contempt is acceptable. Yeah. So this is a new tool. This is brand new. This is trying to take the lessons of the inclusive mindset and apply it to a challenge to our politicians. So we've just launched this a few months ago, and we've started. Oh, 0. We've started. Is it really 0? Should I just, yes? Everybody wants to leave. Yes, okay. All right. Is there anybody else coming in here? Everybody can leave and I can just keep talking. No. Anyway, look at this. Take a picture of it if you want. But notice your own point of view in this when you talk about people on the other political side. Most people are a 3 or a 2. I'm not saying you are. It's not an accusation. But most people are. Most people think my side is the good people and the other side is the bad people. And that's just a hair's breadth above a 1. So it's not surprising. I was flying down here. Let me just read this to you. And this came up on my feed. A person comment. I'm not going to say which side it is. Just you can imagine. We're up against a side that doesn't play by the rules. This is yesterday on television, cable television. We're up against a side that doesn't play by the rules. They break the law and they do the things they need to do. Somebody is going to have to pull a trigger. Most people will say 3 and 2, we're up against the side that doesn't play by the rules. This guy goes right to the 1, right? And 1s are bad. This is a bad deal. Here's a 1. I know I'm out of time. Look at the minister's looking at his watch. Here's quotes from the Holocaust and quotes from the Rwandan genocide. These are 1s, but they're not far from 2s. And if you've slipped into a 2, notice how close you are to stimulating other people to slip into a 1. I guess I get to close. I'm going to go jump all the way up the scale to an 8, which is the opposite from hatred and contempt, all the way up to treating people with dignity. And here's the quote I'm going to unfortunately have to leave you with. And maybe I could ask, Gerald, would you read this out loud? Can you do that? Does your mic work?
Hello? Oh. Yeah, there is a time when I look at some one of those who are described as monsters, and I honestly believe that there are, but for the grace of God, go I. I do not say this because I am some singular saint. I say this because I have sat with condemned men on death row. I have spoken with former police officers who have admitted inflicted the cruelest torture. I have visited child soldiers who have committed acts of nauseating depravity, and I have recognized each of them a depth of humanity that was a mirror of my own.
That's
Desmond Tutu, the Book of Forgiving.
That's an 8.
Thank you.
So this movement, come on, Gerald. I'm going to leave you with this image that we just launched in Berlin, which, as you can see, has got the great support of the Stavros Niarchos Foundation. Our aim is to bring inclusive mindsets, the primary prevention of the threats to our mental health and our stability to young people around the world. We need all of us to conspire to work together on this, and we'll end up in a place like this. This is Sanaa, who was carrying the torch on the track where Jesse Owens ran in 1936. It's the first time an Olympic flame has been in that stadium in almost 90 years. She was in a chain 2 years ago, locked. Today, she's running. Thank you.
Thank you for this
Turned
tremendous.
off my mic.
Thank you for this tremendous presentation,
Thank you,
Dr.
brother. Thank you, brother. Thank you.